There was a lot of begging and a lot of negotiating as my kids got older. And that really then brings up a lot of guilt as a parent when we give them screens and how to navigate that. So especially during the summer, that was really the big point. During the school year, the kids were so busy with school. They were in programs after school. They were doing all these activities. Then it was dinner. And then, they go to bed by like 7:30 or 8 when they were young. But during the summer, this is what became just a constant source of nagging. So I created a summertime checklist. And that's something that's available. I'll post it in the show notes. I have both a one that's for kids who can read and a pre-literate one for, 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds that might not know how to read yet with pictures. And it was all the things. It was their electronic device checklist. And I made it for each child and I laminated it. So it had their name, Aria's checklist. I asked her, we're creating this checklist. What color do you want it to be? And you can put your child's name in it. It's fillable. You can change things out. It's just a Canva template. And I'll put that in my show notes. But this was really helpful. So I made one for each of my 3 kids. I laminated it. It lived on my fridge. My children knew, starting at even age 4, if they wanted to ask for iPad time or if they wanted to ask for TV time, that checklist needed to be done. And it's not some crazy intense checklist, but it was still just basic things. It was wake up, obviously, brush their teeth, eat breakfast, make their bed. That's a keystone habit for me. I love all of those habit books, Atomic Habits, Keystone Habits, and they always talk about just getting your day started. So making your bed is a big one in my house. My 16-year-old doesn't necessarily abide by that anymore, but when they were young, they had to make their bed. They needed to do the things that I wanted done for the day. They had little chores, help mom unload the dishwasher. So those were all put on the checklist with a little picture and, unload the dishwasher, or it was age appropriate. Make your bed. For my 3-year-old, he wasn't unloading the dishwasher. He could help water like a plant or two. And they needed to do those. And then they had to do 30 minutes of something creative. So that was either reading or writing, and that's on the checklist. And they had to go outside for an hour. We live in Hawaii. They can go outside at any point. They can go in our front yard or backyard. It's safe. So they knew that they needed to do these things and they needed to check it off. We had little wet erase markers. They would check it off. They could not even ask me for screen time until all of those little checks were done. On there as well, because I saw this and I just thought it was so cute and helpful, was to do something for a family member, because we do try to grow kindness in our house. And I wanted them to not just do things for themselves to get the checklist, but to do something kind, help out a family member. So they had to do just basic activities, making sure they were eating breakfast and all of that, making their bed. They needed to at least do reading or writing or coloring, something creative that was not screen focused. And again, this is the summer, so it didn't need to be intense, 30 minutes. They needed to be outside for an hour and they needed to help someone. So first few times when we were instituting this checklist and they didn't know that it was something they needed to do, they'd ask for their screen time. Like, no, checklist is on the fridge. You need to make sure you do everything. Now, in the beginning, I would check each thing. I wouldn't let them just checklist it up. But as they got going, then there was trust that, oh yeah, show me what you worked on for 30 minutes. What did you read? What did you write? And there was that trust there. But that screen time checklist really saved my sanity when the kids were younger, because it also, I think, helps them because they know what is the expectation. What do they need to accomplish before they get their screen time? And then there's a limit. They know that it's 1 hour. That's it. There's no negotiating. They can use that hour whenever they want to, except for right before bed. I don't like screens right before bed. I think that really does diminish their sleep quality. But other than that, they could do it in the morning. They could do it in the afternoon, whenever they wanted to. But they needed to get those things done. So that really helped me. So that's what I did when the kids were younger. So the other benefits, it was less whining. They got their outdoor time. They felt empowered because they knew that they would get screen time. It wasn't something I would take away. They knew what needed to be accomplished to get it. And it was tied into healthy vision habits. That hour a day is so beneficial at slowing nearsightedness down. We actually recommend 1 to 2 hours a day, but it can be even indirect light. And again, I've got windows everywhere in my house, so getting full outside an hour a day was going to be good enough. Second, we also set the stage, even when the kids were young, that we had some really basic rules about screens. No screens at the dinner table, no screens at restaurants. So they often would go and they might see a table next to us where the kids were younger than them on their iPads while they waited for food. That was not what we did in our house. So I have a bookshelf, which is right as we exit into our garage. And I had a little box and it had all these activities and games that I would just stuff into my bag if we were going to go out to dinner. So I had all these little puzzle games. I had Uno. I had these thinker games, just even coloring books and journals and all sorts of things. So we would grab them and I would alternate it so it wasn't always the same thing. And I will list that in the show notes. I have a whole blog post on it with links to the things that I would take when the kids were a little bit younger, so that we did have, if we needed, activities to do if they were really getting like crazy and fussy. And again, I had 3 kids ages 4 and under, and we were going to restaurants because I was not cooking all the time. I 100% was not cooking all the time. So this made it manageable. The expectation also for me was I want my kids to learn how to converse at a restaurant. So I didn't want to default to playing these games. But these games also were interactive. So that was fine for me. Sometimes it was just tic-tac-toe. We just needed to ask the waitress for a piece of paper. And we often played hangman and tic-tac-toe. Those honestly were our go-tos, even more than the other things that I brought. But those thinker games were fun because they're challenging also for adults. And sometimes I couldn't get it. And my kids, my like 6-year-old could figure it out because he's much more visual spatial than I am. I really struggled in organic chemistry. Still managed to pass it and did okay. But I think that those games just facilitate, again, family interaction and not being passively consuming just screens. So that was always the rules in our house. And we followed the screen time agreements. I printed it out. It was something that we discussed with our children, even starting at age like 3 or 4. Okay, these are our rules. We don't allow screens at the restaurant. We don't allow screens at the dinner table. And those were just things we didn't do. So they've never had them. So they've never had that expectation. So it makes it a lot easier. When they're older, it's just the way we eat. We don't have screens. So I think instilling that, if your kids are younger, it's a great time to start that habit, because that's the foundation. If they're older, it's not too late. You can still do it. And I think it's important if your kids are older is when you are talking about why we don't have screens at the dinner table. It's to facilitate. This is our one chance to connect as a family. We really tried to eat family together as much as we possibly could. There are times now that the kids are older and they have activities that infringe on dinner time. So 3 of us might eat at one time and 2 of us might eat at another, but we still really try to hold fast to those rules. And I think that's important to explain why you're doing them. Also, it's been linked to inattentive eating and not paying attention to what you're putting in your mouth. And those from a pediatrics perspective, from a developmental and behavioral perspective. And I talked about that with my kids. So just as much information as I could give my kids, I did. Now, the new development is, of course, my kids are older and they have screens for school. They have been given, starting at a really young age, iPads for school and even now laptops for school. So they are on screens constantly for school. And so how do you draw that line? For more tips on eye health, parenting, and staying focused in a busy world, follow me on Instagram at Dr. Rupa Wong or head to drrupawong.com. Until next time, keep your vision clear, your priorities focused, and your family thriving.